prunus, the trees, just opened up this week. So that'll take the edge off of them. You'll hear the trees alive with bees. Kind of nice. Means spring is here. Yay. I'm tired of the winter. Yesterday was emotionally draining. Hey, and welcome to this week's garden class here at Waters Garden Center. We're so glad that you are tuned in. Today's garden class is on how to take care of your evergreens. So the evergreens are coming alive right now. They are actively taking up sap through the trunks of the trees and up, and they're setting the stage for that new candle growth. Most evergreens bloom or grow once in the spring. Whatever candle growth you get, that's what gets locked in, and then that's all you get for the year. So you kind of want to take care of that. It's also when most of the insects go after that tender new growth, because the sap and waters are coming up from the ground through that trunk and up into the tree, into those outer branches. It's tender and it's tasty, and so the insects know that, and so you got aphids going after them. You got pinyon pine scale is as bad as I've ever seen it. And so we want to cover all those. And then I thought I'd go over, I just ran through the nursery and got a few of my favorite evergreens. This is an evergreen class. I thought I'd share some of those, pros and cons of each, how to take care of them. Really, this is about ponderosa, pinyon pines, Austrian, any of your evergreens, spruce, cypress, cedars, all those big trees that are out there. They're the ones that are actively setting the stage to grow. They're starting to grow right now. And so if you were to make a cut right now, it would actually start to leak sap out that cut of a pine tree, let's say. So that's how fast the sap is going. And so it's time to treat them. So my name is Ken Lane. I'm the owner of the garden center. So welcome. I'm glad you're at my place. So we've got 4 family members that work here right now. Actually, no. 7 if you can include the dogs. So I've got my wife and I, because it's a family, it's a mom and pop shop. And then I got twin daughters that work here as well, Megan and Mackenzie. So they're 27, they're learning the process of taking the garden center on for the 3rd generation. So Harold Waters started the business back in 1962. That is my wife's father. So that's how Ken and Lisa Lane come to own Waters Garden Center. That's how. So you got the connection there. So we've been farming and gardening and growing things here for many, many decades, 60 years now. This is our 60th spring open house. And so it's unusual for a company to stay around that long. And we've learned a few things about gardening, especially the natives. So you really got to take care of those. I know that they've been there. You've got a ponderosa. You're honored enough to have several ponderosas in your yard. You need to really care for those because they've lived for hundreds of years out there by themselves when all your neighborhood wasn't there. Now you put roads in and you've altered the environment there. So you've got heat island effect. All that heat coming off the asphalts and the roofs is heating things up so they dry out faster. And then the water flow is completely different. They put out their roots for 100 years ago when no one was here, and now all of a sudden you're here. It's now those roots aren't as effective. They got to figure out how to. So if you do a little bit of care for those, it really is a game changer for how healthy they will respond to a gardener's touch out in the yard. Some of you bought your house for that pinyon pine the character. They're just beautiful. They're pieces of art. And if you lose them, there is no recovery. In fact, you can probably file an insurance claim. They're so valuable. And so you really want to care for those because there's no recovery from that. Some of you built your houses around the ponderosas. Well, if you lose one that's going through the deck or whatever, what are you going to do now? So you really, I guess, board the deck over. That's all you can do because no recovery, but a little bit of care. So we'll cover that for you. And then it's time to put in evergreens. To put them in before they start to elongate and grow, because as soon as they push their new growth, they push new roots, just like that, just boom, boom, at the same time. So you get this mirroring pattern of roots. So if you're going to put a plant in right now, you've got a new landscape, you want to add to it, this is a great time, I'd say ideal time to be putting in some evergreens. I'll go over some that you can put into your own backyard. Okay, first and foremost, March is the time to fertilize. And I would say the most important to fertilize are the evergreens in your yard. So because you only get one shot at this, you only get one set of growth, then it's done. The one that's a little different would be your junipers. They tend to just methodically grow all the time. They're not just once and done, but your pine trees and your spruce trees are definitely one shot, and that's it. In fact, a little secret, I wonder if I've got one here. That's a good example. This one's kind of a good example. Let's see if I can pull out my crate here. Is that going to be tall enough for the, let me put it out here. Can the camera see that, Ken? Is that okay? Or I can put it on a chair, I guess, which is probably the same size, same height. So with an evergreen, when you're looking at this is last year's growth. So you can always tell how much it's going to grow. You don't have to ask me, oh, so how much does that grow? It grows this much. So that's the new bud that's coming out, and that will probably elongate another foot and a half. And then once they're in the ground and they've rooted for a season, that'll probably increase in size by about 25-30%. So just because it's got more roots, so it can force more top growth. But you can always tell how much last year's growth was on a spruce or a pine by that tip. So why I shared that, I don't know, just plant trivia. There you go. You know. This is actually, which one is this? Oregon green pine. That's what this is, just while it's on here, the platform. It's related to Austrian pine. They're both kind of the same. And its cousin is the ponderosa. So ponderosas are a long-needled pine tree. This one's better in that it's less likely to get bark beetle or Ips beetle or flathead borer, the things that eat into the trunk. It's more robust, or it's got more character to fight those things off. But mainly it holds its foliage right down to the ground. So usually a ponderosa, really what you're planting is a trunk in your yard. All the foliage is up there, and you never really see it after just a few years. This one will hold its foliage right down to the ground. Big swooping branches, a nice straight central leader or central trunk, and then branches will swoop off of that. So it's a bit immature this size. We brought this size up just because, well, I've had 2 back surgeries and I can't lift those big boys anymore. So this one was easier. So, but this will get these branches that keep swooping out like this. So great pine tree for here. The Austrian pine, this is Oregon green. It's a little denser. The needles are just a little shorter and it has more branching to it. So it has this fuller look. Austrians are more traditional pine trees. Longer needle, and just has more spacing. So you see that trunk inside, more of that branching structure. So when you look at them, you can tell the difference. One will call to you over the other, I find. People go, I like this one. Well, I like this one. Then the couple will start bickering which one they want. So that's kind of how you tell. So Austrian green pine tree. Yeah. I got 3 handouts for you. One, how to fertilize, because it's time to fertilize. We'll cover that for you. One is how to plant. So it's time to put new evergreens in. This is how you plant it. And then one, I wrote an article last fall called The Insider Tips Your Landscapers Won't Share. And that is how to design tips. Here's how you layer. Here's where you put an evergreen. Here's how you layer them. Here's how you put a proper design in. I'm going to email these to you, so you'll have a PDF of both of these. So I can't, just because I didn't want to print, I don't know, 100-page in color for all of you. I didn't know how many people would show up. But email will be in your inbox by tomorrow morning, guaranteed. So if you want that, put your email down here and you'll have the class handouts. So there you go. And then if you're part of our garden care club already, you're part of the Garden Insider Tips, this is not going to everyone. This is only going to you all. And then for you folks online, we are not going to forget you, I promise. Yes, you get it. So we'll embed those links in the comment section. You'll see the links in there. So you can just pop them up, print them out. So we've made it easy for you. We're trying to make this technically easy. Although I was on a phone call this morning with my financial guy. It's pretty empowering. It's like I'm looking at renting a CFO, part-time fractional CFO for the company. It's helping me make sure I run it correctly. I think I'm doing well, but second set of eyes is always good. And so my car hijacked in the middle of this phone call. My phone call, it just took over the Bluetooth and just said, nope, I'm outside the garage, not in the car. The car's now talking for me in the garage. I can't open the garage fast enough. This technology thing is kind of backfires sometimes. It's crazy. So anyway, those are coming to you. Main thing you can do right now, fertilize. This is the best fertilizer for all evergreens or anything in the yard. This is the one we made about 20 years ago. This is my original recipe of fertilizer. Yes, we make it. It is our recipe. Fertilizers are kind of like cookie recipes. Certain ingredients go together and plants respond accordingly. This one is for our local plants. The evergreens really like the sulfur and the cottonseed meal in this. They respond really, really well to it. It greens them right up. So some of them are a little off color. They're kind of yellow. Your Deodorant Cedars kind of have this yellow hue. Your one I'm noticing now is a red tip photinia. The new growth is all red. Well, last year's growth is green and it's off color. It's got this yellow foliage to it. That's a food thing. Simply put some of this on there, and within 2-3 weeks, it'll green right up, bright red new growth. It'll be a game changer. So this is the first thing you should do without even thinking about it. Where do you put this stuff? I see more mistakes with fertilizer. So if I'm the tree and this is my trunk, these are the branches, don't focus any fertilizer right here. There's no roots that can take in that food. All the feeder roots are out at the branches. The drip line is what they call it. There's real fine root here, so all the water and food really halfway out that branch to the tips, and maybe just a touch further, that's where all the feeder roots are. That's where all the watering roots are. The roots at the trunk of that tree, they're just these big old gnarly anchoring roots. Really, they're so thick in bark they can't even take in water. They're just covered in bark. And so those are just to keep that tree upright. All of the feeder roots are down outside this way. Another myth is there's a taproot to trees. There isn't. Not here. Not in our rocky clay, caliche soil. So the roots go down about 18, maybe 24 inches, and they hook, and they start running this way. So you'll see roots literally 100 yards that way. Their roots are everywhere going this way. They're just underneath the surface of the soil. And so they're there. They've trained themselves to do this because our monsoon rain pattern is all at once. And so when it does rain, it wants as much roots at the surface pulling in water and nutrients as it can, because it only gets one shot at this or a season at this. If you know this is how the local plants are programmed, just put the food out there where they can pick it up. This is granular. So you get a hand spreader, I just chuck it around the drip line to that plant. And it looks salt and peppered when you get all done. And then you pray for rain or another snow. We're going to get one more snow, kind of guaranteed, sometime between now and the end of April. There'll be this last hurrah of cold. So this weather won't hold. There's still a kind of a nip in the air. So it's still not quite, we haven't seen true spring yet. And so this is the first thing you can do. Second, for evergreens. And I would say fruit trees, perennials, great lawn food, roses. You should fertilize everything in the month of March. It's really, really important because things are starting to grow now. Get rid of this. The other one is plant protector. How do I explain this? So this is a systemic. The plant will actually absorb this underneath through the roots, underneath the bark, and then shoot it up through that cambium layer, up through the underneath the bark, up through the tree, and then out to the branches. So plant protector is a game changer for aphids, bark beetle. It's the only pinyon pine scale. It's highly effective. And so anyone can apply this. You're not spraying this on the tree at all. You're mixing this up in a watering can, and then you're pouring it right where the trunk meets the ground, that crown area, right there where it meets right there at the ground. You're pouring this watering can full of this stuff right there. The plant will now take it from there and take it up and do the rest of the work for you. The more water you give it, the better. So this, the way you truly work this, you take a tape measure, you just measure around the trunk, the circumference. However many inches that is, that's how many ounces of this you need in the watering can. Top it off with water and then just pour it around the tree. It's that easy. So that's kind of, this one application lasts for an entire year. Some of you are going to need to do this every year, especially in that chaparral, pinyon pine, manzanita areas. You know where you're at. So those areas are right now being decimated by pinyon pine scale. And the way you find that, you can ID this yourself. If you're in doubt, bring a sample in. We got a microscope. We can show it to you. We can show you the fangs, the 8 eyes, the 12 teeth, and actually it's got a scale. You can't see a thing, but we can tell you what the scale looks like. But you'll see a needle. Just take any kind of needle on a pine tree, and if you see a little black dot, it'll be tiny. It's like someone took a pencil and just went, jump. If you see several dots on each one of those is an insect that has pierced that needle and is sucking the life forces out of that needle. And then the whole tree will just be covered with thousands of these scale. Pinyon pines are the most famous for succumbing to this. The plant will eventually die from that if left untreated. And what happens is they kill off so many needles, the plant literally starves to death. That's how it finally succumbs. It'll look, a pinyon pine should be lush. This is a pinyon pine. This is how they should look. Beautiful, lush, thick, gorgeous. That is a healthy pinyon pine. If yours is thin and wispy and only needles on the very ends, you've got a problem. Probably it's had or does have pinyon pine scale that has been affecting this tree over several years, and all it needs is you to care for it for a couple of years, and it'll flush that new growth without the scale eating it, and then it'll look really flush like this. This is actually called single leaf pinyon pine. This is the one they get the pine nuts off of. So if you're going to Sprouts and buying pinyon pine nuts, this is the tree that they actually harvest that off of. I find it's a little bit flusher. You see the needles are just a little bit chubbier. It's got a little bit bluer color to it. So, and I find it's less prone to pinyon pine scale, but just as hardy as our local one here too. So look for that. And again, if in doubt, come talk to us. Another one to really watch for if you've got ponderosis or pine trees, look at the bark, and if you see a hole in the bark, it looks like someone took a needle, just poked a hole in the bark. That is the exit hole of a pinyon pine, or of a Ips beetle or bark beetle. So that's the exit. So it's a little tiny beetle, cute as could be. It's a little black thing, and they colonize underneath the bark, and they start eating that living tissue under the bark, and eventually they will girdle the tree, and it just dies. So if you cut off all that living bark underneath, it just kills it off, and there's no recovery from that. So if you do see some exit holes, it's serious. You need to come talk to us. I would say food and pinyon pines, or the plant protector, is what is your real first line defense on that. So keep that tree healthy, and it can fight these native things that attack it. It knows how to do that. It's when the tree becomes weak, now all of a sudden they become easy prey, and most of these insects, like a bark beetle, it has a pheromone, and when it finds an easy target, it sends off this pheromone to the surrounding area that says, hey, it's a party, come over here, call all. And they'll just start attacking this one tree. They'll just fly in from everywhere and attack this tree. So it's never just one. When you pull that bark off of a dead specimen, it's colonies. It's hundreds of these beetles that attack this thing. But they're tiny. You'd never guess such a little tiny beetle could kill something so majestic, but they can. So that's food, plant protector. That's how you protect those. But look for those. Look for dots on the needles, and look for holes, tiny holes. You have to look close. It's not a big gaping hole. This big gaping hole, you got even worse problems. You got a hole that's like that big, that's a flat head borer. There's a big old beetle that comes in afterwards. After the bark beetle has stressed out that pine tree, there's a bigger beetle that comes to finish it off. It's bigger in that it just basically creates this thing, turns it into sawdust, basically. And so it just kind of there, at that point when you start seeing that, it's kind of, we can try, but it's kind of all over at that point. You want to catch it while there's still bark beetle infestations, or keep it from that, keep it from even getting to that stage is the goal, okay? I guess we ought to cover junipers. My gosh. So the junipers are going nuts right now. Okay, so I've got majestic, where the pinyon pines grow, the junipers grow. The manzanitas grow. The cotoneasters grow. All these native, beautiful natives. If you've got juniper allergies this year, I feel sorry for you, because it's a bad year and there's nothing you're going to do about it, because pollen's going all, these males, it's always the males. You can see that in a forest of junipers, some of them are yellow right now, and some of them are just nice green. Those are the ladies. They're just so pretty. The guys are going, I'm just going to populate the whole mountainside. And so they're shooting off this pollen to the gals, which are the green ones. So the gals put on the berries. The guys are the polluters with this pollen stuff. So you can now tell the difference. Oh, that's a female juniper. I know which one it is. You know how to ID it. I don't know of any solution to the pollen other than rain. We just need another last storm to take that pollen off that tree and just cuckoo. If you're to throw a rock or a pair of shears or a shovel or something or hand trowel up into that tree and have it go through the branches, it'll literally, dust will just go huge clouds. It'll look like the tree's on fire. There's that much pollen. So that's kind of what that is. The junipers that we sell, so we know that people have allergies. I have terrible allergies to junipers. We only sell the females. So we bred all that pollen out of those samples, so you don't see very little pollen on the junipers. So when you're planting, don't put a male Spartan juniper out there to screen out the neighbors. There's nothing tougher than a juniper. They are really robust. If you got a rental property or something like that, you want something that the renters cannot kill, juniper. But then do the females. So there's some that are better than others. So I think sometimes people that have allergies are afraid to use junipers because they think it will compound their allergies. It's not going to do that. You're surrounded by juniper forests, and you don't stand a chance. Have you ever seen a male juniper go off? Like the temperature gets just right in the morning, it literally explodes. Just all at once goes poof. And this tree just starts to throw pollen everywhere. And then it just slowly drifts from there. So I've got a beautiful one in my backyard. It's so majestic, hundreds of years old. It's an alligator juniper. And so it's got this bark to it, two kind of branches coming up. I've actually pruned it up, and then I've lit it so it lights up at night. And then I put art underneath it, and then I've got lights, down light on the art. It's magical. It's pretty, but it's a big old male, so it's causing issues. I need it to rain right now. Whether you could hose it down enough, it's such a big tree, probably not. But if you find out a way to do that online, research it real quick. Let us know. How do you get rid of pollen on junipers? I don't know. It's a good pollen year this year. It's good. It's bigger than normal, I would say. Okay, that's the junipers. If you see scale, so let's talk about pinyon pine scale. Remember, that's the one where you see a dot on that needle. That's how you identify it. You don't want to see dots on your needles. That's bad. But if you do, here's what you do. So right now we're having customers come in. They've hatched. They've burrowed out of that scale, that covering. That keeps the aphids and ladybugs and things off. The ladybugs, the praying mantis, the predators off of them. So it's a protective coating. They burrowed through that. Now they've crawled down to the bottom of the tree, and they're all making whoopee basically down there in the main trunk. So right where the trunk meets the ground, main crotches, you'll see these white cottony egg masses right in there. It'll have kind of a yellow black dots in it, but it looks like a cottony mass. If you see that, you've got scale. And they've laid their eggs, and that's the next brood that will come up and attach themselves to the new growth. If you see it, collect all those that you can. You're not going to get them all, but at least you can take half the egg mass casings out and throw them away or give them to neighbors you don't like. I don't know, just get them off your property. You don't want them. So, and then you want to treat like we just said. As they hatch, keep a close eye on this. It's not happened yet. There's a hatching stage where those eggs hatch. We call it the crawler stage. It happens, they crawl for about 7 to 10 days or so. And so they'll be crawling up and down the tree. It looks like the bark is alive. If you see that, it's a huge opportunity where you can spray it with an oil. So I brought this. This is Horticultural Oil. This mainly gets used on fruit trees. You think of fruit trees for bark, for codling moth or peach borers, that kind of stuff. It'll do it on roses for the aphids and the thrip. This works very well on pinyon pine scale at the crawler stage. It doesn't work very well on when it's already scaled over. That shell just kind of has it shed right off. But highly effective when they're crawling back and forth. So that's what I would use, and very organic, very inexpensive per gallon, whatever, and easy to use, safe for the birds and the dogs, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So your question was scale. Does it happen to a stressed tree or a healthy tree? It doesn't matter. It seems to happen when this tree that has it, there's too much competition. They just start crawling and they magically show up on the next one. Then they start eating that one. So keep a close eye on them. If they're healthy, that's good because it's easier to get them to recover. If they're stressed, that's awkward. I help my neighbors. So I've got several pinyon pines. Hey, would you mind if I help you take care of these? Because I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose your tree because it blocks this view for me. I just go over and give them some plant protector fertilizer. When they come back in a couple of years, I just kind of do that. Now I just do it while they're not looking. And just they just look really good. So, and it keeps them healthy. So it's good for me, good for them. And it's a neighbor helping a neighbor. It just works out. So yeah. 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 Oh, you use the hose in sprayer, this thing. So he said he used this bottle, and this spray. This is a ready to spray is what they call it. You put your hose right here and flip it on. It just automatically pre-mixes and sprays it. He just said he likes it. I'll give you a $10 bill later. So yeah, thank you. That's good. No, it does work, and it's a good oil. That we use this one because oils can get too thick, and you can get some damage or burning on some of your broadleaf evergreens. This one will do less damage. We can spray it when the temperatures are a little bit hotter, and it still won't burn. It's still effective. So that's why we picked this one over others. Anyway, your grandparents called it dormant oil. We found a lighter mix and call it horticultural oil. So anyway, that's the more information than you need. Let's take a quick swig here. Get my allergies from going too crazy. I was telling the folks that showed up earlier, I was driving with the convertible top down. I'm at the edge going down the street in my neighborhood. Where is all this dust coming from? This is crazy. What is this? Construction going on? You follow the dust pattern back, and it was a juniper just kind of pushing this pollen. You couldn't see across the street. It was so thick. It was crazy. It's ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it. So it's a bad pollen year. Okay. Let's go down here. And probably for you folks that are from the Midwest, you know what this is. This is an Arborvitae. It's kind of an old-fashioned plant. Is that better, Ken? Is that better on the screen? Can you see it okay? So this is an evergreen. We use it for windbreaks and privacy screens. So if you got a hot tub or something, you want to screen the neighbors off. It grows tall and not that thick, so it doesn't take up a lot of real estate. But you can get it, you can pack it in where it's just one solid green wall. Arborvitae does really, really well here. And there's no real pest to this, except deer can eat it every once in a while, especially the new growth. Once it gets old and thick and kind of crusty. They don't like it so much, but that new growth they seem to like a little bit. So Arborvitae is a great one for your, if you like green. Sometimes that light green looks really good against the blues of the oaks and that kind of stuff. You get that contrast. It really makes a garden look really good. This one would be really great at if you've got block walls. Let's see out in Granville or something. Oh man, they just watered this one. Here we go. Let's see if we can get this baby. Ah! This is a Norway spruce. It's related to our Colorado spruce, the one that grows wild up in the mountains. So spruce adapt really well here. I would say once they get established, you could almost let them go by themselves, but with just a couple times a month watering, once a year fertilizing, it will outshine the rest of the plants. Spruce, their claim to fame when people are new to this area, let's say they're from the deserts or a tropical climate like Southern California, they don't know the names of things. You go, that plant that looks like a Christmas tree, that's this one. So this one happens to be a little bit shorter needle, has more branches, but it's super green. So again, if you need, seems like everyone likes the Colorado spruce, that silvery blue color, but sometimes it's nice to have the green look in there too. So again, central leader, it's just gonna have those branches that kind of grow up. This grows up to about 40 feet tall, about 20 feet wide, just this nice conical, beautiful green shape. So it screams Christmas tree, screams holidays, but it looks good any time of the year. Treat this the same way. I would say fertilize it now. I would say these ornamentals or anything that's small, you want to get it to grow fast. Let's see, you've got a new landscape. You want it just to mature. You know, just those plants are too small. I wish they were a little bit bigger. Fertilize them now. Fertilize them right before the rains come. July 4th is kind of the cue. The monsoon pattern, kind of there's this summer rain pattern that happens. You can fertilize right before that. You can really double the growth on these plants. You get a whole nother set of flowers on roses. Your crepe myrtles will go crazy. Your sycamores will get even larger leaves. You fertilize them. The most important feeding for any plant, especially evergreens, is the fall of the year. That's October. Think Halloween. So if you're thinking holidays, think Easter, 4th of July, Halloween. Those are mental cues that kind of help you. Oh, it's time to fertilize. And you always use the same thing, that all-purpose plant food. The evergreens really respond, and that pattern will keep the greenness. That it'll keep the winter chlorosis, that yellowing, off color in the winter. When the days get real short, you've had a couple of snowstorms, they start to go yellow. It'll keep that. I mean, you kind of just need some green in the winter. When they go yellow, it just kind of lets you down. Let's see if I can get this down here without hurting myself. This is probably the #1 seller of all of them. We sell literally thousands of these a year. This is Alberta spruce. And the reason they're so popular, they stay small. So they grow about 3 inches a year. They're just, so you put them in containers, you put them at the front of those pillars out in front of the front door, coming up center of a garden. There's a lot of places you can use an evergreen like this. And they're just cute as can be. Christmas lights on them at the front door, in a container. They're just cute. And so it's kind of the teddy bear of the evergreen world. This is one you do not want to buy small and let it grow, because it will take way too many years. You want to put your money into this one, get it bigger, so because it's going to stay that size for a long time. At maturity, this is going to be about head height. Kind of a teddy bear kind of shape like this, just nice and thick and full. So really tough. The only insect this gets, I found over the years, there's a spider mite. There's a summer pest that can go after this, likes the taste of that. It'll push its new growth. There's a spider mite. You'll see some webbing inside the branches. That webbing, there's a mite that gets in there that just kind of strips off the foliage. And it'll literally look dusty when you get all done. It can kill the tree if left unchecked. But if you know what to look for, it's easy to correct if you see it. It's just when you're gone for 2 months, it's been free for all for 2 months. It's been a party at your expense, basically. That one's hard to recover from. So anyway, spider mites on that one. I won't lift this one up because it's so big. This is a Deodorant Cedar, the biggest trees in your neighborhood. Can you see it, Ken? Yes, thank you. This one gets up. This is actually too big for most yards. I would never put this in my yard. I don't have enough real estate. It grows up 80 feet tall by 25, 30 foot wide. The reason they're so popular, they're tough as nails and they grow fast. We're talking 2-3 feet a year. I mean, it's on steroids. It can quickly, if you put that by the house, it will quickly obliterate your house. Nothing will be left, just tree. So you kind of want to spot those further out in the corners of the properties. Out by the street, if you've got a great big front yard, maybe out in the middle, where it can have some real estate to grow. But that's a really good one for if you need fast evergreen growth. It's good. If you're living in some of these newer, smaller lots, probably too big and too aggressive for your landscape. Or you can look at it this way. I'll be moving in 5 years. I don't care. Let someone else chainsaw it down. Maybe that's not, if you're going to be there any longer than that, no, you're just too big for you. Okay. So junipers, I mentioned those. This one I use a lot. So I've got a classic. What is wrong with that? I got a cord or something right there. Yeah, there we go. I wonder why I was wobbling. Is that okay, Ken? Got it. Perfect. So I've got a beautiful front patio. It's a courtyard. It's secret, seclusive. You just want to go out there in your PJs and drink coffee and read the paper and not see your neighbors going by. So I use these to kind of screen that off. So at least they can't see me until they get to the mailbox and look down the driveway. Also, my neighbors across the street, they've got a better lot than I do, higher up. So they look down at me. So I just use these. What I did is I've got a zigzag pattern. This will grow about 8 feet tall, about 6 feet wide. I just zigzagged them like this. Now they're solid green and it feels really good. I've got a lot of blue already in my yard. So I've got big junipers, these oaks and that kind of stuff. I didn't need more blue. I was looking to change up the color. And sometimes this green pop, this is its winter color. As soon as it flushes, it gets Kelly green, like really bright green. It gets a central leader to it, kind of has big branches, and it will be, this looks innocent, but it's going to be this thick when it gets down. You won't see through it at all. I mean, this thick around. It's a great screen for plants, and it's not a pollen. It's not a polluter with pollen. These are females, so you're okay to plant them. Tough as nails. Junipers are really tough. Oh, look, they did. I'm going to get this out of the way. Instead of struggling with that. Here, I can show you the difference. This is Austrian pine. Remember I said this is a pine tree that holds its foliage right down to the ground. It's about 35 feet tall, about 15 feet wide, something like that, with a nice straight trunk. This one is Oregon green. Now, can you see the difference? Kind of see the two. They grow the same size. This is a blonde. This is brunette. There's no real difference. It just has a little bit different texture and color to it. That's it. But they're both really strong growers here. So good plants. I think they're prettier than ponderosas. If you want a ponderosa, I'll have those. But really, you're going to put them in. It's a trunk that you're planting in the yard. And in 5 years, there's nothing but green up there. So I like these. When I'm designing, I'll design these in, not a ponderosa. Now, I guess we got to talk about Italian cypress for the Californians. There you go, Italian cypress, pencil to the moon, straight up. There's a place for it, especially if you like formal gardens. So this plant doesn't really have any real pests that I've seen. I've seen spider mites once or twice before, but it's pretty rare. I think it's when they get real stressed, they can get some problems. But if you want a plant that goes 50 feet tall, just this big around, straight up to the moon, it's a great accent. So I'll use these sometimes to frame, let's say, a vista. I want to draw your eye from, let's say, a deck overlooking granite dells. I'll just use it like a picture frame, and I'll force you and your guests to kind of look this way. It's a trick that we use in design that kind of little like picture frame in your living room. You can do that in the yard, and these are good ones. Usually they put them right up against the trunk of the house right underneath the eave, and all of a sudden they're competing with the gutters. That maybe isn't the best use. You should have backed them off a little bit further out so they weren't competing with the house so much. So be careful with these. They look innocent. And then they go to the sky and keep on going. Really good plant for here, though. Really tough. Let's see. I brought a couple. This is probably our most famous of all the natives. This might be a #1 seller, especially out in Chino, the valley areas. This is Arizona Cypress. It is a local. It does come from here. It grows wild down in Kirkland, Baghdad, Camp Verde, Skull Valley. You'll see wild forests of these. In fact, many times it looks like it's a juniper. It's not. It's an Arizona Cypress, but instead of a berry, it puts on a little tiny pine cone like this. That's the difference. That's how you tell. Again, very fast grower. It grows up to 20, 25 feet tall, about 12 feet wide. Nice straight trunk, and it's thick. It doesn't have this layered look. It's got this thick juniper look to it. It's like you can't see, but see around it, through it, over it. You can't see. It's going to block it off, which is great if you need to block off a neighbor or you need to cut the wind out in these bigger properties. It's a great one. I say you could use this too out in the corners. Let's see, you got a great big cinder block fence, and those corners just look awkward. If you plant one of these in the corner, it quickly softens that, makes it look more natural. And when it grows up to size, so fertilize it, water it until it gets up to size that you want, cut it off of all care. Doesn't need any help. It is truly a native. So that's how tough it can be. So this is one you want to spec into your, again, landlords. This is a great one. Your tenants can't kill this. So it adapts really well to our surrounding area. This is its natural place. This one's called Icy Blue. We're trying to bring in some specialty colors. It's got a richer, deeper silver blue to it, whereas the native one has more of a blue kind of color to it. Anyway, we sell several different types of Arizona cypress. Another thing too, evergreens, they don't get wide in the bucket. They get spindly and tall, leggy. And so they fill out. Once they're in the ground for a year, the next year, all of a sudden they go, boom. They just start filling out and getting chunky, looking full. They look really good. Here in the bucket, it's all we can do to get them to get some branches on them. So kind of be aware of that one. I'll show you how we get past that with some of the spruce. So that's this one. I don't know if I can lift that up or not. Let's see. Oh, yes, not as. Oh, I think I can. Oh, this is a Colorado spruce. It's a baby blue spruce. So we're bringing out, again, this is a specialty. So we grafted a specific kind of spruce that has this denser, prettier look. So we took a specimen, whoa, that's as pretty as they come. We took a cutting and grafted onto the roots of this one. Grew it on for years, and this is what it looks like. So you get an exact copy of that plant in your yard. And so it's got denser needles to it, denser branches to it, and really silver blue to it. So really striking color to it. So it doesn't grow quite as tall either. Say Colorado spruce gets up 40 feet. This is half of that. And so yet it keeps that shapeliness to it. So the way we get this so full, remember I said evergreens don't like to get full like this. This is nice and full. The way we do it is we grow them in the ground as a farm, like we're just farming spruce trees in the ground. Now they'll get nice and chubby and full. As we grow them, we root prune them. So every couple of years, we'll take a pruner, just kind of cut the roots. Now when we cut that root, it'll start sending off more roots. So we're increasing the root count. And then when we're finally ready to harvest, this was harvested last fall, we'll actually ball and burlap it. We'll dig that root ball out, wrap it in burlap. They call it ball and burlap. And so you'll see some buckets here have burlap in a black bucket. Those are all grown, field grown at the farm because they naturally don't get bushy. So we can get a nice, good looking plant. You just got to root prune it. Then you transplant it last fall. We're flushing out the new roots. So now you've got a plant that's nice and bushy that will transplant in your own backyard. So we kind of got a lesson on container grown. This one was actually grown in its own container. It's never seen the ground. But you see it's not as bushy. It's just more spindly. It just won't bush out. Once you put this in the ground, though, instantly it'll start looking like this, full. The next year, it's like, it's not growing. What's going on? What happened this year? The next spring, it just goes, whoo, whole nother plant. Evergreens are unique like that, more so than deciduous trees or shade trees or aspens. So just more trivia than you ever wanted to know about the inner workings of gardening, farming with plants, but that's truly what's happening. So I'll go up. Yeah. I personally take a team up and we fly up to the farm, our farms that are growing our stuff. We'll walk the fields. I want to look in the hole and make sure they've been root pruning. I want to see the root count after they've harvested that year's crop. And I'm looking to see the quality. So it's, you get quality of everything. I'm going to inspect the quality. And then the bigger specimens we're hand tagging. So we're hand picking. I want that one because it's better than that one. Tag it. So when I flag that, it's all mine. So they'll harvest that one out of the field, pot it up, and then that's what we're bringing in this spring. So just kind of, it's overkill, but we're kind of noted for quality. And as soon as I let that drop, you might as well shop at Home Depot. We're better than they are, and that's how we're better. So that's what we're looking for. I brought a few shrubs too. Let me make sure I finish this. Let me go down this way. I did bring some shrubs I want to show you too. Let's go this one. This is super unusual. You East Coast folks will love this. And Ken, I'm not gonna try to lift this. It's wearing me out. So this is Vanderwolf Pine. It's related to an eastern white pine, but it adapts better to our soil. It really likes the alkalinity, our sunshine, our extreme temperatures. This one adapts really well. This baby is soft. You can't go by it without. It's just soft. It wants to hug you. Most evergreens are prickly, brittle. They just want to poke you. Not this guy. And you'll notice that it's got two-tone needles. It's got green or blue and white. It's got two colors to it. Vanderwolf Pine. Very painfully slow growing. It grows tall to about 10, 12, 15 feet, somewhere like that. Not very wide, only about this wide. It's nice and shapely. It's got a central trunk to it. Slow, methodical growth, but a great accent plant. Really good at putting it in there in a raised bed or along a driveway where you need something to kind of break things up that looks really good. This is almost a centerpiece. It's so pretty. So you got to touch it before you leave. Just kind of, you want to hug it. Very unusual for an evergreen to be that soft. If you're going to kill this tree, it'll be from overwatering. It does not like a lot of water. So it's drought hardy. So especially if you're in clay soil. In fact, I should cover that. Let's cover this. Let's just show you a secret. This looks funky. It's a Dr. Seuss tree. I realize you either hate it or love it. Okay, I got it. This is a weeping Atlas cedar. It's related to our statehood tree downtown on the courthouse. That biggest tree, the one that we planted at the state's founding. The biggest tree is an Atlas cedar. This is a cousin of that, weeping Atlas. And it grows up, and you train this leader will literally go around your deck. You can do S curves. You can play with it. It's a gardener's dream kind of tree. Many times you'll see it serpentine like this. This happens to grow like this, and then it will just drape down. It can just have this weeping format to it. So there's a place to design with something like this. It's not for everyone, but it's funky, different, weird, and gardeners seem to like it. So we sell dozens of these, not hundreds, but dozens each year. Weeping Atlas cedar, very, very drought hardy. A secret that'll help you plant this. Most evergreens are going to appreciate this. So they don't like wet, soggy soil roots. They want to be able to breathe in between water cycles. So usually about once a week, it's pretty good for these. You don't need to overdo it. Don't treat them like a rose or perennial flowers. That's too much water for them. They need to breathe or you'll get what's called root rot. The roots will literally rot off from underneath them and it will die. I've killed many evergreens learning how to do this. My first house is over in Prescott Valley off of Pawnee Drive. Yes, you folks know where that is. And that back half of Prescott Valley, back when Prescott Valley had dirt roads. Ooh, we called it Jackass Flats. Yes, I have lived in Jackass Flats, but it was remote. It was pristine. Antelopes were roaming around. It was beautiful. And so this tree, actually several evergreens, it's a heavy clay soil out there. It just doesn't perk. In fact, if you don't have ground cover like rock and weed fabric on top, you walk on that wet soil, you just grow. It sticks to the bottom of your feet. You start to gain height. It's really sticky, gooey. So I was killing plants by planting it flat so that the soil was right up against it, was level. I started to leave 3-4 inches of root out of the ground. Then I would slowly mound that soil up. So no matter what the rain or the irrigation happened, I could guarantee that at least that much of the roots could breathe. Game changer. I cut my death rate or mortality rate, down to 0 just by doing that. If you've got really heavy clay soil, it's an easy technique that will guarantee you. I didn't leave the roots exposed. I just had a real slight mound to it so I could get some of that root out of that ground, out of that heavy clay soil, and it really made a difference. So I'll send you a planting guide that kind of mentions that. So really you're planting this hole, digging it wider, put a bucket on each side, kind of round, the same depth. You don't have to go very deep because the roots are not going to go down. There's just more rock and caliche and nothing for them down there. Everything that's valuable to a plant is up at the surface. And so the roots are going to go this way. Just encourage the roots to start growing that way. Then you're going to amend that dirt that you have, that you pull out of that hole, amend it with Water's premium mulch. We make our own compost. So we harvest out of the White Mountains, a local product. We screen it down to 3/4 inch minus, compost it for a year, and then we put it in a bag called Water's Premium Mulch. It's made to add to our native soil to keep it from compressing right back down to clay. So the roots can now get through that surrounding soil. Use that, blend that together, about 1 shovel's compost to 3 shovels of native earth, or about 25%. You can cheat it up to 30, 50%. If you got a big rock you got to pull out of there, but you mainly want native soil. Blend that together and backfill around this. Do not bury any of this top surface, especially for evergreens. Leave it where it can breathe. A mistake I see a lot of folks, they'll be generous and they'll just kind of they'll get too much dirt on the trunk. That's deadly for evergreens especially. So kind of leave this should be exposed, and then just slightly mound it around there. Pack it in, water it in. I'll take a handful of this all-purpose plant food when I'm all done. Take a generous handful and sprinkle that around. That's what's going to fertilize it for the next 3 months. So every time you water, a little bit of this food will release and you just get more root growth. You just need roots. The more roots you get, the better. At the very, very end, I will water it in with Root and Grow. This is a compost tea that we make. We actually brew up our own tea, and we call it Root and Grow. So if you open it up, it looks like maple syrup. It kind of looks like fish emulsion, only without all the stink. It's got an earthy smell, but not a raw. Made to help it get started. It's also the best houseplant food you've ever seen. Houseplants love it. So anyway, that's how you plant those things. Another one to watch. We are guaranteed to have. We've been out with Cedar. We got that one. Is there another one I was going to show off? Kind of getting to the end. I have it same. Okay, another one to watch. The snows that we might have in March and April are really heavy. They're heavy, wet snows. And you put some new growth on those evergreens, put a heavy snow on them. If that happens, it doesn't happen every year, but it's a pretty regular occurrence. If you see that, go and sweep that snow off, get the weight off before that evening hits. Because after that storm clears out, it really gets cold. Like it'll get that sap will freeze. And if that tree is actually weeping down, and that sap freezes, it'll solidify and take that shape. It's not that pretty. So whenever it snows here, we come in and and the secret is sweep side to side, start from the bottom, sweep side to side. Don't just go like this or you can break your top off because there's a lot of weight. You can have hundreds of pounds on this tree. Just start from the bottom, take a broom, sweep it side to side, just knock most of the weight off, not all of it, just most of the weight. And really keep the health of your trees. Just it's one gardener to another. It's really helped me out and keep my trees healthy, especially those evergreens, especially the fast growers, Deodorant Cedars when they're small, Arizona Cypress when they're smaller. They grow so fast. They get that weight on them, they just kind of go vump and fall over. If they fall over, just straighten them back up. Stake them. They'll keep on growing, so you never know. But why do that? You just know it's going to happen and then take care of it. So it seems like the spring is when a lot of that damage happens. Okay. All right, so a couple shrubs, and I'll wrap this up. How are we doing on time? Kelly. So anyway, this is its winter color. The new growth comes out with this bright yellow color to it. Can have a tinge of red to it. Then the older growth is this dark holly speckled look. I've grown this in containers, in the yard. It just really adapts well. Animals don't seem to bother it. It's a good strong plant. I like this more in the shaded areas because it's so bright. It'll take that shade and it just glows. Whereas sometimes that darker blues and greens it disappears. So I like to use these in that darker area. Doesn't form a berry like holly though. Just has, in fact, I don't even think it blooms. I think it's just growing it for that foliage. On the cherry, think so? Let's try it. Here we go. few things will grow underneath the juniper. This will. This is where it naturally shows up. So it'll grow underneath the oaks. It'll grow underneath the pinyon pines, the junipers. That's where you see it out in the wild. That's where you're seeing this. Give me just a sec. But I planted this underneath I put 5 of them underneath my juniper. And now it's just solid Oregon grape all the way around. It's beautiful. And so it will take all that litter, all that, junipers drop a lot of stuff. They're trying to bury and suffocate everything underneath them. It's a defensive thing they do. And they taint the soil. They actually chemically change the soil underneath it so nothing can compete. Only they can grow. It's a natural thing they've learned to do. Doesn't get insects. Animals don't bother it. It's a great plant. I brought this one, and then we'll end up with these two shade things, because not all of us have sunny locations. These are 2 shade plants that you see this time of year that are evergreen. This is a rhododendron. They're starting to bloom now. Rhodies actually do really, really well here in the shade. Other parts of the country you can grow this in full sun. Not here. It won't like this altitude. It's too bright for it. It'll take some sun that morning or late in the day. At midday in June, really rough on it. So it grows in containers, grows in the yard. The great thing about these, if you're in that wildland interface, you got all these ponderosas and pinyons or deer and roaming around, no animals bother this. So you can plant it right out there with confidence and know you have an evergreen that will bloom in the spring and the deer aren't going to eat it. Same with this one. These are companion plants. This one gets the rhodie gets a little taller. It gets up about hip high or so. This one gets up about this tall, just knee high or so. This is lily of the valley, or Pieris is a botanical name or Latin name. It gets these big swooping water out here and keep the water in to be able to water that thing. An inch of water will penetrate approximately 6 inches of soil. So if you've got a root system that's like this, you might need 3 or 4 inches of water to penetrate that entire root mass, and then a little bit more. So you need a berm system to help you kind of get that water down that far, to hold it that far, or a trip system, enough emitters to be able to run it long enough to push it down that far. Another one you need to watch too, see a lot of folks plant their evergreens, this cute little Christmas tree right by the driveway. And it looks good for 3 years. Then all of a sudden the branches are starting to swoop out and it's starting to impede on the walkways or the driveways. What do? If you just butcher it back, well, now it looks funny. So usually what they'll do is they'll limit from the bottom. They'll just take that first branch structure close to the ground, the ones that are longest, they'll take that one back. Just take them all off. It makes it easier to sweep and rake underneath them, clean them up. I kind of like to take that first limb off anyway, just for my care, easier care. The quail don't like it. They like it, the limbs right down to the ground. They nest better that way. But for me, I care about myself. So I just clean it up that way. Some trees, you've seen them prune them all the way up to here because it was just way too close to anything. It's their way of recovery. It doesn't damage the tree. It'll keep growing. It can just look Dr. Seuss-like all of a sudden. You go, that's just looks a little off. And so kind of plant them in the right place. That's where placement is critical with evergreens especially, because there's no recovery 5 years from now. You just got to start over, or you start pruning them weird, okay? So fertilize now, plant protector, the two main things I can tell you for established plants. If you see a plant that you like, now's a good time to plant them. Anything else? Okay. No, you already asked one. She's back here. Next, I'll come back to you. Oh, can a spruce take sun? Oh yeah, they'll take bright, hot. They'll even take reflective heat. And as they grow and get fuller, they actually start protecting themselves. They'll actually change the environment that they're growing in. So we're putting that data and then we're notified immediately. So we go running to go get it before someone else does. We'll have it waiting for you. Or mainly I'm finding folks are going, I see that you have, I'm here to get, show me. So we're seeing that kind of, but there's Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so he's got an Alberta spruce. And on the west side, this guy here, you're trying to get it back together. You can spray it, that new growth. There's a product down there called Cloud Cover. Pretty sure that's the name of it. It's a clear coat. It's basically sunblock for foliage, or latex, like putting latex glove on the foliage, keeps it from drying out so it doesn't perspire as fast. Another one of what I would do right now is they make a product for you. Plants that get stressed out. Let me move this just so the folks online can see it. We're trying to think of you folks online. I know you're tuned in. We're not forgetting you. Yes, we know you're there. So this is called humic acid. I would do this in addition to my fertilizer for that one because you need more roots. It's getting stressed out. We get more roots underneath that thing, it won't brown out, won't dry out as much. So this actually feeds the soil so the plant wants to root more, wants to add additional root hairs. Enough. I mainly suggest that Humec, this will be in the handout I'll send you here shortly. I mainly suggest that in the summer feeding, just because June is so hot and dry that plants get stressed. So anything that's stressed, use Humic and the food. For you, you just know. Pocket gophers. The reason they call them pocket gopher, we don't have moles here like the East Coast. These are smaller and there's more of them. It's called a pocket gopher. The reason they call it a pocket gopher, it's got a pocket of skin underneath its chin where it scoops up dirt and uses a shovel, and then it throws it up these tunnels. They make these mounds all over the yard. That's how you know you got pocket gopher. You have more than one, you have entire families. I mean, I've literally caught 50 on one fence line from my house to the barn. I mean, it was ridiculous. I was using traps. So I finally moved from traps because I caught so many. I mean, 50 rats. They're rats underground. They deserve to die. Don't let them live. But they're disgusting. They eat the roots off your plants. So they're not good. So I've literally watched broccoli disappear underground comically. Underground, just disappear. It's not right. And so if you're going to do that in my yard, I'm coming after you. And so I finally switched over to bait. There's a zinc-based. Stay away from strychnine. You can still get that stuff. It's super dangerous for you, for your dogs. It just keeps killing. It never goes away. But zinc does not do that. So they'll lace some seed with zinc, and a little bit of zinc's good for you. A lot isn't. And so you put that in the run, and then they'll find this going, oh, free meal. They'll kind of eat it, get sick to their tummy, go to bed, never wake up. It's a process, though. If you have one gopher, you got to keep after. Probably take a month to go after. What I would do is, this is what I did. Again, my name's Ken, just friends, just talking. I went out and took the tractor. I just graded that back field where all the gophers were. Then every morning I would go out, and when I saw a new mound, I knew they were active. I would go bait that mound, and I would kick it So I know I've taken care of that one. And every morning I would go out and see the new one. I just kept after them. I got them off of 10 acres that way. So if you got really big property, there's a tool down there called a Gopher Probe. It's like a T-bar that you fill with this bait. You probe it around the outer edges of this mound. You feel it slip all of a sudden as it goes into the run. It's got a door that opens up the bait where you can just get it underground where they can get access to it. So you can bait large, makes your bait go farther, lets you do more faster. You could actually pull that dirt out, take a screwdriver or a weeder and dig out that soft tunnel. You can actually trace the tunnel back. Take a teaspoon and try to get as far back as you can and just do it that way. Just have one or two. That's an easy way to do it. If you've got more than 20 mounds, just get the tool. It's expensive, but it just makes the work so much easier. We can go offline and kind of get you more information. But gophers are my expertise. I know how to kill them. Yeah. They got to run about me to you, 10 by 10 by about square. They'll have about 3 or 4 nests and a cute little bird nest underground made of grass and stuff. And so they're not working all the area. They're working. They got this bedroom section. They're the east, west, north, and south wings is what they have. So they're not always working the whole route. They're working pieces of it. So they're looking for worms and that kind of stuff. But kill them. They're bad. Mama just shot out the babies. So you're seeing smaller holes right now, and they'll be running on top of the ground at night typically. Oh, really? That's probably what happened. Mama kicked them out. They're finding their own way right now. Yeah, never enough. So I'll leave you with this story, and it's grueling. Just kind of, it's brutal. Nature. Oh my gosh. So I'm watching a blue heron out in the pasture, and generally they're pond kind of animals. This heron was standing out in the orchard, right in the pasture, and he's just looking down. I'm going, what the heck is he doing? It's a tall bird. And so all of a sudden you see him go, whoom. He caught a gopher, threw it up in the air. You saw him go just like that. It was gone like that. That is cool. Oh my gosh, I've never seen that before. Wow. He was just hunting gophers right there out in the pasture. Now usually it's fish. In our house, it's gophers. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll hang out with any questions before you go. I got to let you clap just because, I don't know, it's the old actor in me. Thank you very much. Thank you. Online, thank you very much. Come back next week. I think next week is on, do we know, Ken? I forgot. Stuff next week on how to put new things in the yard, whether it's a lilac, evergreen, or whatever. So come back next week, 3 o'clock on Friday. Thanks, you all. Yeah.